Let's go to our caller.
Hey, Ed, how you doing? Thanks for calling.
Hey, I'm well, thank you.
What's your question for Morgan?
Hey, Morgan, I've been listening, and I had a question about something I read in the newspaper today that said the Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Republicans, had confirmed through their fact-finding that the Russians interfered in the last presidential election.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what your thoughts were about Russian interference and what we do to stop that.
Well, it's a great question, Ed. Thanks for calling. The answer is I don't know what exactly the Russians did. I think the Senate Intelligence Committee has been a fairly partisan committee leaning against the Republicans, leaning towards the Democrats. Now, if we look at the testimony, the congressional testimony that's been given by both Facebook and Google executives, allegedly what happened was they had these kind of content farms that were out there basically putting out memes and using Facebook to try to distribute these memes. Now, the memes, if you understand what a meme is, it's kind of like a picture, and then it's got like a joke along with it or something pithy that's said along with it. And these were broad-based. They weren't necessarily specific to a candidate, but they were a broader-based thing, like there were memes, I think, attacking homosexuality and the LGBTQ movement and things like that. Those were some of the types of memes. I think the most popular of the memes that got the most traction was something with Yosemite Sam. So these weren't specific to one or the other political candidate. So to the extent that we have any Russian interference in the election, the evidence that I've seen in terms of what they were doing is fairly minor. And it's also fairly insulting to think that these minor inputs into our election, which would be just, distributing content somewhere that people wind up sharing, that actually had an impact on the election. I mean, exactly how stupid do we think the American voters are? I don't think they're stupid. I think politicians think they're stupid, like Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and others. And we see them treat us like we're stupid, like we can't remember what happened last week, like we can't listen to congressional testimony ourselves. So they think they're just going to state conclusions for us and we're just going to buy them hook, line, and sinker. But I don't think that there's been any actual evidence of any significant interference in our election. So, I'm sort of a non-believer in that whole line of thinking that there was significant election interference coming from the Russians. And for me, with the lack of trust that I've developed in federal law enforcement over the past several years after what we've seen that they've been doing, including last week, the report that came out from Judge Boasberg on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. He's a FISA judge, and he found that there have been tens of thousands of violations of the Fourth Amendment by the FBI. And that's actually recent. That's in 2017 and 2018. Now, we know that this Friday, the IG report is supposed to be coming out on the FISA abuses that occurred before 2017. So all this is to say that I have a hard time taking what some of these politicians and some of these political groups, including the groups in the Senate, and the Senate Intelligence Committee, to me, is kind of a hotbed of this hyper-politicized, information flow. And so I don't tend to take what they say extremely seriously. Now, obviously, there was some level of Russian interference in the same way, I suppose, that, there was some level of interference by mosquitoes. Maybe one person didn't go to the poll because, there's too many mosquitoes out or something. I mean, it's like this really highly tangential relationship between the input and the output of voting. So the input of seeing a meme somewhere and somehow the output is that affected your vote. And I just don't see the correlation or the connection.
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.